สวัสดีครับ Greetings from Bangkok. Kasit Piromya once again. This time I will pause a bit away from Thai politics and go out of the country a bit to Switzerland, which I visited during the last week of the month of July a few days ago. So I was in Switzerland for about a week to attend sort of a small international conference of about 25 people from almost 20 countries. The conference was on sort of a global dialogue on global ethics of how the international community should work and live together in harmony and in a peaceful environment. This particular conference was being held at a chateau, a castle, in a small Swiss town called Caux, overlooking Lake Geneva, about 90 kilometers from Geneva, or even from Bern, the capital of Switzerland. And it's about 15 minutes by car or even by a small train from a famous Swiss city of Montreux, a very famous tourist destination and famous for its annual international jazz festival. The Caux chateau or castle 100 years ago was a place for the members of the royal families, the Romanov family of the Russian Empire, to come and spend a few weeks during winter or summer to enjoy the good scenic beauty of Switzerland and the good life, dancing, good wine, and so on. Then the Russian Revolution came in 1917. This chateau that belonged to the Romanov family was left unattended and became half ruined until the end of the Second World War. A group of well-to-do Swiss business families took over the castle from the Swiss government and turned it into a venue for discussion on peace and cooperation under the name of moral rearmament. It's like an atonement also on the part of the Swiss businessmen and bankers and so on, that during the Second World War, as a neutral country, Switzerland was not being devastated or affected by the wars. And Switzerland became a place where a lot of monies from all sides of the warring nations deposited their money and so on. So Switzerland gained a lot during the war. And some of the Swiss businessmen, intellectuals and so on said that we have to amend for such a privilege. We have to do something for the world at large. So they started to use this chateau or castle as a venue to discuss peace. And one of the first conference that took place was between the then leaders of Germany and France, namely Konrad Adenauer and Robert Schuman of France. the two of them, together with many of the French and the German ordinary intellectuals, businessmen, and so on, had a few days of discussion that eventually led to the agreement to rewrite history books for children, so that the history book do not point at one another as the arch enemy and place blames on the other side, but to rewrite history that would accept facts and go on with life with forgiveness and the willingness to work for peace and cooperation with one another. That meeting eventually led to the formation and the setting up of the European coal and steel community that eventually evolutionalized, let me say that, into the European Union of today, which I think all of us are fully aware of. So, Caux Chateau or Caux Castle belongs to world history, and particularly to the European history, for the fact that it was the venue for the setting up of the European Union 70 years ago, and for the peace and reconciliation to take place between France and Germany, which until the Second World War were fighting one another for more than 200 years. Reconciliation came about, cooperation followed, and peace has been part and parcel of Western Europe to this very day. So, Caux Chateau has a history. And the fact that we were there during the last week of July, of course, we do get each one of us the inspiration as well as aspiration from what went on many years ago. Hopefully, in the depth of our hearts, that we could repeat the story of finding peace, harmony, and cooperation in the world at large. So the two-day discussion were very intense, in order to find a sort of a common ideas, to find commonalities on all the religious thinking from, I think, the philosophy of great thinkers such as Aristotle or even Confucius of China and so on, to put them together and see what would be the commonalities of all of this thinking of the prophets, the philosophers and so on, that could constitute as a basis for cooperation, for peace and harmony in the world at large. We hope to be able to do this within 2-3 years time. So the meeting at the Caux Castle during the last month of July was at its inception, the beginning. We hope that in a few weeks' time, we will be able to come out with a sort of a concept paper in the form of a declaration that we would send to everyone around the world for comments, for input, and so on, to build up a sort of a consensus as a guideline or a guiding principles for each individual, communities, societies, countries, and the international community to accept this concept and work together to end this distrust, confrontation, cutthroat competition, and wars, so that we can live in harmony, caring for one another, working for one another across the differences of religions, beliefs, colors of the skin, races, and all of this and so on, or even ideologies. We, the people of the international community, should have something in common, and that those commonalities should be the basis to guide us, a framework for us to work together and to move the world forward in a peaceful manner imbued with harmony and prosperity. And having said this to you, I hope that in a few weeks' time, I would be able to say more about this particular concept paper on global ethics for harmony, balance, and moderation. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ